Hello once again, everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of our Fiore spear showcase. So, last time we tackled the guards on the right side. Today we're going to tackle the guards of the left side, and we're also going to talk about the follow-ups that we get from there, because now there's a little bit of a change in them. And joining me once again is Jake, our resident Italian. So, first and foremost, let's start off with our first guard, which is going to be Dente del Cingaro. Now, this is where I get a slight, annoying rant, because we get to go over both Veracruz and Dente today, and I really feel like they make way more sense if they would look the opposite way, but oh well, right? So, the way we're going to form Dente is going to be our hands are relatively close together on our left side. My right side is now presented forward, thumbs to tip, okay? Now, this position, if I'm against, once again, the standard nuke thrust, will give me where I'm relatively comfortable. Now my footwork here is I'm going to advance my lead foot off the line. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to open my body as I step forward and in. So to show that kind of from the front, I'm picking up my foot, straightening my back leg, so I step kind of obliquely. This will allow me to get more pressure in against him than trying to step away from it. So as he starts to come forward, I come in and against it, which gives me a very, very strong crossing, beating it in a similar way to the way I did to Porta di Ferro last time, but now I'm kind of on the opposite side of the spear. From here, all I need to do is extend my point and stab. But when it comes to the finishing position of this, we start to see a slightly different finish. So before, he would have been right-handed and I would have been right-handed too, but we were seeing kind of basically this. But on this side, Fiore shows a little bit higher with our spear, kind of almost more parallel to my head. Now, this could have just been he was drawing variety for sake of variety, you know, don't draw the exact same picture backwards. Alternatively, there is a slight property to this that is important to pay attention to. Not required, but important to bear in mind. Go ahead and just stand out as though you thrust. So, when I come from over his arm, i.e. this side, pretty much all my crossings allow me to also press his arm downward. I get a lot of strength here, and his only way of defending is going to be to kind of retract and lift, which again gives me very favorable target area. When I'm on the other side of his body, though, he now has a much stronger capability of pushing this up and against my tip, which locks out a lot more of my options. I can still pull and go, but now I'm going through 3 openings as opposed to just 2. However, if when I launch my thrust here, I slightly lift, this can counteract his ability to pull up, not by actually being able to necessarily physically hold him down, but if he starts to lift, I can just hinge off my back hand, thus giving me that slight plunge. Now, do we know if Fiore intended this? No, this is pure speculation. But it is a property that is noticeable on one side versus the other, especially against the move thrust. So you should keep it in mind. The trick is I don't really want to jump to that unless I feel him moving. So what that would look like is I'm using Dente again. He thrusts in, I create this, and I start coming forward and I start feeling him lift. Now I hinge with my backhand as my tip is already going in, so I get the target I want to get. So, as for the hands, they're pretty much just doing the same standard stuff we were doing last time. I'm bringing my right hand up against my hip as I step outward, which gives me that nice strong cross from above, and then I can point and go. So we'll show that one more time on this side, then we'll switch. Nice and strong, hinge if I need to. It should be noted, I'm not trying to go up really above my head like high serpent. I'm more of just turning my hand up to about my face level, which has the property of my tip now being the snake over. We'll switch sides and do it again. I'm all loaded up. He comes in, create my crossing, get my point in. One more time. Nice and good. So, let's switch sides one more time. So, our next guard, meanwhile, is going to be Veracruz. This is the really interesting one, in my opinion, and we'll have to tie into the kind of conclusion video that I will do at the end of the series. So Veracruz is, again, right foot forward, but now my spear is held parallel to the ground. Now, at first, this does not look like a very logical guard to hold, because my spear point is well away from the person I'm fighting. We'll get back to that again in a second. And in general, this is not necessarily the most offensive way to go. It kind of looks like Codalonga, in a way, but to enter in like this doesn't really bear a lot of fruit. However, the key difference with this one compared to the other guards is that this is the only one which I will be stepping backward with. So I will do a tornado this time as he attacks at me. Now, the way this is going to work is I'm basically going to do that Codalonga-esque movement. This can be thought of as being the flip side of doing mezzo portivo. I am going to, as I bring my tornare backward, not swing horizontally. Instead, I'm going to bring my tip slightly up and through so I get a little bit of downward push, which I am currently overemphasizing, which will give me a much stronger cover as I now settle left foot forward. And the reason I'm doing this is because he's coming quite forward at me, meaning that if I stay where I am, right, I'm not going to get in time. If I try to step forward with this, we'll have you back a little bit further. This is just overall weaker. I am coming from the outside, I'm going to eat it in the face. But if I step backward, that means that he's coming into my house, and I get much more strength. So, here's this once again. I am turned backward. My spear is not parallel with the ground, and certainly not pointed at the ground. I want it just up a little bit. My eyes are fixed on him as he comes in with his thrust, straight to a tornare, and your point should be at his face. With equal length spears, I'd be about in Jake's nose. With a longer spear, though, it's still not a problem. The important thing is I don't want to pass forward. I just did all that hard work. Keep this side forward so I can then hit him or hinge in or whatever else I need to do. Here's that again. Through, point. Let's switch sides. One more time. Now, the big question, much like with Fenestra, is why? Why am I there? We'll be talking more about this in my conclusion video, but give a bit of a, let's say, preview. My opinion on this one especially is that you aren't holding this guard to fight. You got pushed here. So one of the common things that we will see, let's switch sides for this explanation. One of the common things that we will see used in any close range stuff is the idea of turning the elbow. So this could be from a bunch of different situations. I could have already been fighting this side, but at some point, Jake managed to get his right arm on my elbow and turn me. Now, important thing, when Jake does that, regardless of length of his spear, he's going to be shortening to get me. I end up turned. If I try to go forward or hold my ground, Jake is going to win. But if as he thrusts, I do that tornare, I take us back to the long range game where I might have advantage. The long and short of it is, and I don't know if this is the truth, but since I'm stepping backward, I'm probably at too close of a range to want to try and do this. If he had just turned me, this gets me back to my main range once more and gives me the ability to get my point on target and frankly get out of a pretty sticky situation. So we'll kind of show that one more time, and then I'll talk about another instance that could happen. So we're already kind of close, we're already kind of fighting. Jake manages to get a turn on me. I step, and I can then bring it back as he comes with that thrust. You can go ahead and thrust as soon as you get the opening. We'll go again. Even if I can't get my point at him immediately, just by keeping my feet as I do that step, I have a much better chance of threatening him than he does. The final instance that this could maybe be would be, like I said, I'm not lined up to fight Jake. But if I were fighting somebody else, and I look at Jake, now I get that same sort of play. So a bit like when we were doing the sword in one hand, or if you watch Kurt Holtvetter's videos, he likes to switch sides a lot at the moment. Same sort of idea. I was fighting someone, here's another person, let's deal with him. Either way, that's going to be a better approach. Now, moving on, we get kind of the, I'm not going to say lamest on this side, but kind of disappointing because you expect something more exciting. We get Fenestra, Sinestra. Now, the fun bit about Fenestra, Sinestra is that you might think that I would be standing as Jake does, right? Finally, an explanation for the move thrust. But that's not the case. Instead, Fiore is standing left-handed in Fenestra as he did before. Now, as we talked about already, this could be I was just making a cover, just now on this side. Especially if I was already fighting this side and he threw a cut in, I may have to do this, or things along those lines. So odds are you probably got there that way, at least if we're following the idea I have. But either way, it's not advantageous for me to be lead hand rather, because then I can only thrust as much as Jake does. But if I have my left hand up, I can do all the things that we talked about before with my full turning. So now we'll just go ahead and show it on this side. Really not a whole lot changes. And I still perform it in exactly the same way. I even sometimes find that my left is a bit stronger. I don't know why. Maybe it's because my right hand is the thing supporting the flare out now. but it's really, really nice on this side. And it just goes right up the middle. That's nothing necessarily too complicated. If you want to see it done more, you can go watch the right side, because nothing changes. I can also still do my break and my beat as we did before. Nothing really to write home about. So, the final part for here, before we get to conclusions, which again is a separate video, is talking about the counters to our respective spear sides. And for this, we got to talk about, again, art changing. So, first and foremost, if Jake is reliably doing the mook thrust, then I only need to worry about his counter if I'm going from the left side, or if I'm doing the tooth support barrel from below. If I'm doing tooth support barrel from above, again, we'll talk about this in the conclusion video, I no longer need to worry about this. So if I'm coming from my right, regardless of position, and he thrusts in, I will always get this outside closing. Meaning that I can put my point on the target. If he tries to bring his back end up, he's running into my strong side. I really kind of have all the advantage here. Alternatively, if I was doing something from the left side, then this now means that whenever he comes in, I will give him that opportunity to come forward into this gap with his steel butt. Thus, he can put that into my face or what have you, or things along those lines. Now, I get that same opening as I do this, but it should be noted, again, opportunities only present themselves on some sides. So if I come forward with my right side, as he does the thrust in, right, and he parries it across, then I may step up and do my strike if I'm going initially. If we came then from my left side, though, so I'll go ahead and go from here again, he comes in, either of us could step up and get this, but he has the slightly better line. Now the big thing that should kind of be noted on, and the thing I'll leave on this for one, is whenever you're doing a butt strike, you want to be keeping range. You just got a good opportunity to enter into the close range game, but we aren't necessarily going to grapple. So I will now showcase what I'm talking about here. Let's have me do it off of the left guard, just for sake of ease. So I'll go ahead and hit it. He thrusts in, I get my crossing, and he pushes my tip out of the way. What I want to focus on here, even though if I was stepping forward, it doesn't really matter. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to hinge my point up to here, and then execute a strike with my arms and maybe my foot. What I'm not looking to do is hinge up by the body, because while I can get my point on him, I can't necessarily exert a ton of force unless it's sharp, and now I have no choice, even if I do whack him, I have to now throw him. This makes me vulnerable to certain counters that if he's banking on wrestling, which now he must, then he will probably do. But if I stayed out here, his only option is maybe he can still grapple me, but he'll have to move in against me, which gives me certain advantages because he has to come to me. Basically, I came to the closest version of weapon fighting range and give him the choice of keep using your weapon, which I have a better situation of, or try to use your body, but I can still use my weapon. So as long as you keep kind of that medium range, just on the edge of body to body, you'll have a lot more success in striking rather than going to the wrestling. Because if I wanted to go to the wrestling, I shouldn't even think about the butt strike at all. Not that you can't still get one, mind you, but that would look along the lines of this. So he comes in, I get my cover, I should just go ahead and immediately go to the body using all that momentum to get it going. If I hit him across the face while I do so, great, I'm not going to turn that down. But if I take time to focus on boom, then boom, that's 2 tempo when I could have all the momentum from 1. So, that's my advice on doing the butt strikes. And it should also be noted, if you are doing the high winding over, you still have the exact same opening as does he. So I will go ahead and show it from my perspective. So we come in, I get my cover, I was lifting when he carries, I still have the exact same thing. I'm just doing more of a horizontal sort of swing as opposed to like an uppercut. But either way, thank you very much, Dick. That is going to be our guards on the left side, as well as the follow-ups from both sides. It should be noted, it is shown as a counter, so it would be Jake that's doing these to me, but I'm showing them since I'm explaining them. So, next time, we're going to go over 2 different things. We're going to go over the conclusion to some of my theory as to what unites a lot of these things, as well as talk about some other things you can do that don't necessarily fall specifically into each guard, and also the sword versus the spear. But for now, thank you very, very much for watching. We'll go over some other techniques another time.